Welcome to Suspense She Shed Sunday. My name's Holly. I'm just a southern gal that tells you true crime. Lay back, relax, and give me some spare time. Hit like and subscribe if you love my beautiful rhymes. Now that I'm done being goofy, let's get on with the movie. It's a true crime story about Tom Brown. It's about the murder. Or was it a murder? I don't know. It's a mystery. And it has tons of twists and turns. And if you love suspense, mystery, this is the place for you guys. And so let's get on with this crazy story. If you live in Oklahoma or Texas, you know football is a big deal around here. If you don't, you can still listen. I don't mind. Here, it is a God, gun, hunting, family, and football kind of place, especially in small towns. The mysterious death of Thomas Brown happened in a small community that had just these kind of values. This case involves some strange conspiracy theories or possible truths. No one knows because this case is as much of a mystery as it was on the day of Tom's death. Tom's death occurred on Thanksgiving Day in 2016. Was it a suicide, an accident, or cold-blooded murder? Let's discuss the case of 18-year-old Thomas Brown. Now go with me. Let's travel to Canadian, Texas, which is about 100 miles from Amarillo, and is located in the northeast portion of the Texas Panhandle. I got a wagon from over there, and a real old wagon. It came off the XIT Ranch. I think that's somewhere around the Panhandle or somewhere around there. So the town of Canadian is named after the Canadian River that runs along the side of it. Let me tell you, the Canadian River is a great place to fish as well as noodle. In case some of you don't know what noodling is, it is catching catfish by your hand. Like literally, they're on a nest, you go in, you catch them. I love to noodle. The town is among rolling hills and Lake Marvin is just north of it. Canadian runs a population of about 3,000 residents, a pretty close-knit town where no one was a stranger. And when they talked about Canadian, they were like, it's a little town. To me, 3,000 residents are actually quite a bit. Being a country girl, I was from a super, super small town. So but to you, probably 3,000 residents is not much, really. And just like all small towns in this area, football was a big deal. Thomas Brown was a high school senior and he played left tackle for the Canadian Wildcat football team. He was also the class president and in drama. He was said to have been funny and well liked by everyone. He fit in with everybody, band nerds, football players, emo, whatever you were. He fit right in. It's like he just never felt he was better than anyone, and he talked to everyone. And he just was a well-liked guy, well-respected, and well-rounded. Loved drama, loved football. When he became class president, on his speech, he was able to joke his way into the seat of president. And I'm telling you, this boy sounds just like my son, my oldest son. I swear, that boy, that's how he got class president. He was so funny that they just gave it to him. And so he sounds a lot like him. So at the start, I just really loved this boy. I was like, this is my kind of boy. He is 6'1" and 180 pounds. Pretty big boy, but he played football. A month before Tom's death, he did quit the football team. And a few weeks later, he broke up with his girlfriend, Sage. But he didn't seem upset about either of these events. So no one really thought anything about it at the time. Tom and his family were getting excited about spending some time together for Thanksgiving of 2016. On November 23rd at around 6 p.m., he drove his Dodge Durango to spend some time with his friends, Michael Castleton, Caleb King, and Kristen Webb. And Kristen Webb is the only girl of that group of friends. He asked his mom Penny for a debit card so he could fill his Durango up with gas. And then the boys all met at the middle school. They all ended up getting into Kristen's car to ride around. I know in our small town, not being much to do, of course that was quite a while ago when there was no internet. Yeah, I'm kind of older than you guys. I'm not going to claim it, though. Really not. All these young guys doing YouTube and where this old woman is. We used to ride around town and everybody would pretty much go in the same square, around town. And then you would park in a parking lot and everybody would sit on top of their car, turn the music real loud and just enjoy each other's company. And that's kind of how this town was. They just would ride around and just gather together and have a good time. But that night, the boys decided to go for a walk on the Canadian Wagon Bridge. I guess a lot of people walked on it. I think it was some kind of like a bike trail. So they walked on the bridge a little while and drove back to the parking lot about 11 o'clock. And they decided to call it a night. They all said good night and each took off in their own vehicle to head home. According to CCTV, Tom was seen putting gas in his vehicle around 11:30. Tom's curfew was at 12, and a little after 12, his mom, Penny, really started getting worried because he was a reliable kid. He never missed that curfew. One thing is he liked to play video games with all his friends, and he wanted to make sure to get back and do that. So she texted Tom, and there was no reply. She could tell that the first text got read, but the last text she sent him at 12:10, would not go through. And she knew his phone was off at this point. At 12:13, it was later learned this was the last ping of Tom's phone. And that ping occurred near the Wildcat football stadium. They got so worried, Penny sent her older son Tucker to drive around and look for Tom, while Penny called his friends that were with him that night, and they just let her know they had last seen him at the middle school. They had all parted ways and went home. Penny's like, something's wrong. So Penny then calls the cops, and it took, for some reason, about 45 minutes for the deputy to get to her house. And at 3:30, Deputy Pine Gregory, I'm not sure, Gregory showed up at her house. Her son Tucker had come home by then, so Tucker got in with the deputy into his patrol car, and they took off to look for Tom together. Tucker later said that he noticed a normally closed and locked gate to a dirt road was open, but the deputy didn't go down the road. Tucker later asked him to go back and search that area, and the deputy told him no because he's going off shift, and he didn't want to bother with it, basically. I guess that's what you'd say. He didn't say he didn't want to bother with it, but he said he's going off shift. The next morning, Christian Webb, Tom's friend, and his dad, who owned a helicopter, decided to take it up and see if they could locate him or his vehicle. They actually did spot Tom's vehicle, and it was down. Guess what? It was down that same dirt road that had the gate that was usually closed and locked, the one the deputy didn't want to go down. He's getting off shift. They called the authorities then, There was no sign of Tom or his backpack with his laptop in it, nor phone or keys inside the truck. Actually, it was a Dodge Durango, not really a truck, I guess. On the Durango, one of the windows were down and the doors were unlocked. A blood droplet was found in the vehicle, I think along the inside of the front door, just one droplet. And along with that, there was an empty .25 caliber bullet casing. And also a debit card belonging to his friend Michael Castleton. He was the one of the boys that was riding in the vehicle, Christian's vehicle, not his. I thought it was kind of odd, and that his mom gave him a debit card. Why was Michael's in his truck? There was also a spot near the truck where it looked like someone had just urinated, or just like a wet spot. That would have dried quickly, so it had to have been pretty recent. One thing I do know, I know that a .25 caliber is not much more powerful than a .22 and is not usually used as a self-defense weapon. Most people would not pick that as a weapon of choice. At close range, it would definitely kill someone, but it's not the most accurate caliber to use. .22 is basically just like for shooting birds. I do find this is an unusual choice of weapons. I do know some about guns and everything. When you're raised in the country as a farm girl, you learn how to shoot and you learn how to do things like this. So, I'm not the best with guns, but I do know a small amount. And to me, I thought that was just a little unusual. Also, I'm not sure why the DNA was not tested from the urine, or at least I didn't hear that it was, because they don't mention that. But I don't know. According to Penny, the truck was turned back over to her on the same day, that very same day, after the police supposedly went over it. The police did say it was too dirty to get fingerprints off of the truck. No forensic evidence was done on the truck at all, although the bullet casing and blood had been removed. Dogs tracked Tom's scent to the Canadian River, which was a mile east of Tom's vehicle. Tom's vehicle was seen at the County Recreation Center around 5:56 that morning. So Penny, the mom, said that the sheriff had asked her for Tom's passcode, and she thought that an odd request since no phone had been found. When the sheriff questioned Tom's ex-girlfriend, Sage, she stated, okay, this is a little different, guys. She stated that Tom liked to wear adult diapers and wore them under his clothes sometimes, even up to the day he disappeared. I guess he had told her that, and he also told his friend Kristen that, because she said the same thing. She said that he would wear them sometimes. I guess it was just like a fetish of his. So after the sheriff found out this, he went to talk to Penny about what the girls had said, and this just made her angry and thought the sheriff was just trying to ruin her son's reputation. But Tom's family did admit that when Tom was in middle school, they had caught him wearing one of his little cousin's diapers. His mom said he had stopped after they caught him. I guess he had been doing it a while, and then his mom caught him, and maybe he was embarrassed enough that he stopped. And she said he hadn't wore them since middle school. But I'm going to tell you right now, you do not tell your mom those kind of things. And you guys know you don't. I mean, normally, and if you have a very judgmental mom, you're not going to tell her things that might be a little different about yourself. Penny did tell the sheriff that she did suspect that Tom might have committed suicide, but that was when his death first occurred, due to the fact depression ran in her family and her own father had committed suicide. But after some things had come forward, she then thought it was a little fishy and that perhaps that he had been murdered. After all this, Tom's family decided to bring a PI onto the case because they didn't think the sheriff could handle it. The PI's name was Philip Klein. Philip Klein was actually on Dateline Investigations, and I guess he was a private investigator that people had used on that show. A lot of this I found on a podcast, and you guys need to go watch it. It's called Tom Brown's Body, and I suggest you watch it because he interviews a lot of these people, and it's actually quite interesting. But to me, Philip Klein comes off very cocky, very, I'm a superstar, kind of thing. I'm not sure. You just judge for yourself. I'll let you watch it and see what you think. Found it on Apple Podcasts, but you guys should go watch it. Tom's backpack was found in mid-January by a maintenance worker beside Marvin Road on the other side of a barbed fence underneath a tree. It was indented into the ground, so it looked like it had been there a while. But it was sitting in a perfectly upright position. But it was about 4 miles from where Tom's truck was parked. Tom's family did state that Tom did not like to walk and he was not an outdoorsy person. Remember, he was a video game boy. He didn't like that walking. So they didn't think he had to walk from his truck all the way there and set his backpack under a tree. That's kind of strange. The sheriff kept saying that Tom was a runaway and then he had just left his bag sitting under the tree when he left. The PI Klein truly thought that Tom was murdered, and he ended up bringing another investigator in to help him with the case. And he also brought in a body hunter who used her cadaver dog to search for the scent of death. And they took the dog and went to the Durango and got him to scent around, and he actually did pick up a scent inside the Durango. So while Klein was on the case of he's been murdered, I'm going to figure out how, the sheriff was on the case of he's a runaway, and I'm going to figure out how and why. And he began to accuse the friend Christian in helping Tom run away. And the reason he did this is because he found records. He had confiscated her phone, and they looked at her phone, and they found records of her communicating with somebody in Colorado. And the guy through the text was named Nathan. But they thought that actually Tom, and his name was Nathan on her phone, and that he had ran off to Colorado. The sheriff actually thought Tom was gay, didn't want to tell his mom. He said he possibly met this man online, an older man, and that he was living in Colorado with this older man. Him and Kristen were talking back and forth. To come to find out, they did some investigation. Nathan was actually just Nathan. He actually just existed. And there was no communication between Kristen and Tom. There was also rumors flying around, and one of them was that Tom had been on the dark web on a fetish site. And due to the fetish of him wearing adult diapers, this caused him to get on the dark web. And he ended up meeting someone that he actually met up with that night. And that Tom actually ended up dead. Then in 2017, Klein got a call from a girl that gave info that only investigators knew. The girl stated she overheard a conversation where Tom's body was. She knew where it was located. And she stated she heard Tom's body had been placed on Marvin Road. I guess not far from where his backpack was found. So Klein got a group together, and they went out and searched for the body in that area. And he made sure they would be looking for the things Tom had with him that day, such as his phone and his keys and whatever too. In 6 minutes, Would you know it? Would you know it? 6 minutes into the search, a woman found an iPhone. But they didn't think it was Tom's because it looked in perfect condition. It was just pristine. It was like it came out of the box, as Klein said. And so they really did not think it was Tom's. They thought perhaps somebody had dropped it that was searching. Klein said it didn't even have water damage, and they've been having super heavy rains. It had like 23 inches in the last few months. But guess what? It ended up being Tom's phone. Later discovered when Tom was out with friends that night, he had looked up the suicide prevention number, but he actually never called it. They also found out the phone died at 12:23 and it was not shut off like the mother had thought. Also, his Facebook account had been deleted, and Penny said that Klein had deleted it, and Klein said he thought Penny had deleted it, and no one knew who had deleted his Facebook. There was so many theories going around to the case. Everyone wanted to say. The whole town was busybody talking, gossiping about what they thought they'd heard or what happened. And Tom's friends that were with him that night kept getting accused by people in town of being involved in the crime. One rumor was that the sheriff had put Tom's body in a wood chipper, that he had actually had sex with Tom and then killed him and put him in a wood chipper. I don't know. Weird, I know. I guess we've heard weirder things in crimes. Klein said he finally decided to put luminol in Tom's Durango, and he said that it lit up everywhere, that blood had been all over that Durango. But the FBI later reputed that, and they said that it was just paint that Tom had spilled in his vehicle. It was not blood it was picking up. Because the phone that was found was in such pristine condition when found, Klein and some other people in town thought it had been actually planted there before the search. Klein began to think it was the sheriff or somebody in his office, but mainly the sheriff that had planted the phone. So, since the sheriff and the people in his office were the only ones that knew where the search was going to happen, he felt like it was the sheriff that did it or someone like that. And he did believe the sheriff was part of a cover-up. But the opposite went around because the sheriff said he thought it was Klein that had planted it there. And when the sheriff was asked how Klein would have got the phone, when he did not even come into town until after Tom had disappeared, the sheriff stated that he believed Tom's mom had given it to Klein. Why, you asked, did he believe that? He said that he had always thought that she had the phone because she was asking all of Tom's friends what Tom's passcode was on his phone. So why did she need the passcode, he said, if she didn't have the phone? Which is basically, if you remember, Penny said that the deputy had asked her for the passcode. She said that's the reason she texted Tom's friends and asked them the passcode, because the deputy had asked her for the passcode. But the sheriff says that is not true at all. No one from the sheriff's office asked her for the passcode. So you can see right now there is some serious lying going on somewhere in this story. There is lying. Actually, the AG that later investigates says that there was no evidence that the deputy or anybody from that office had asked for that passcode. So basically, Tom's death was just becoming a petty fight in the town. Finally, in January of 2019, the remains of Tom Brown was found by the actual deputy, who said he was out near Marvin Lake looking for antler sheds at the time of the discovery. His body was found about 12 miles from where Tom's vehicle had been found. If he committed suicide, first, why would he park his car 12 miles away from where he committed suicide? Like, Why are you going to walk all that way just to kill yourself? That makes no sense at all. Tom's body, since it had been a few years, they were just scattered bones at this point. So no forensic evidence could be obtained from his bones, other than he had had blunt force trauma to his head. But they didn't know if it happened before death or after because, they couldn't tell. It could have been that animals had just, chewed on it or whatever. They just couldn't tell what happened to his bones. So like I said, the sheriff thought Penny was somehow involved because she had the phone, he thought. And his suspicions was that Penny had went looking for Tom, found him in his vehicle, and Tom had committed suicide. Due to the fact her dad had committed suicide as well, she didn't want people to know that her son had committed suicide. So she decided to just get his stepfather, and they would just go hide Tom's body. So he basically thought it was a cover-up by Penny. As a mom, I don't believe that story. No way would you leave your child's body out in an environment where animals and weather would just scatter it apart. No way could you sleep at night, or I as a mother could sleep at night. You would at least bury your child, even if it was just out in the woods. You're not just going to leave them out in the open and let anything destroy them. Like that I just can't see that happening. No way. So during that time that the sheriff was believing that, Klein got a call, the investigator got a call from someone in prison that stated that he was a football player the same time that Tom was. He said he was recruited to play football at the high school, and he was actually paid to throw certain games. So they would make them lose, in other words. I do know we're serious about football, but good grief. The guy that was prison also stated Sheriff Lewis was an enforcer for a high-dollar gambling ring in Canadian that was betting on the outcomes of the Wildcat football game. So they were basically making money off this with bets. He said that he was told to get into sheriff's patrol car. He was blindfolded, and they drove for about 25 minutes. When they arrived at a location, he was told to take off his blindfold, and then Lewis turned his headlights on while they were sitting in the car, and right in front of them, he recalled seeing Thomas Brown sitting in a chair, bound to it, with the deputy actually holding a gun to Brown Thomas's head. He was told that he was to lose the football game the Friday after Thanksgiving, or they would both die. They would kill this prisoner that was talking and Tom. And he claims that's the last time he ever seen Thomas Brown. The AG's office, the Attorney General's office, decided to come in and do an investigation at this point due to all the mixed crazy theories going around. And there was even more. I couldn't even go through everything that was occurring. It's rumors and rumors and more rumors. So they decided to come take it over, and they decided to give a lie detector test to several people that were involved in this case. And even Klein, the investigator, was told he had to give a lie detector test. It was that bad. And two other people that took the lie detector test was actually the sheriff and Tom's mom, Penny. And I'm going to tell you this right now, the sheriff and Tom's mom flunked the test. Although since lie detector tests are not actually considered very accurate, they can't be really brought into court as evidence or anything like that. So the AG office worked a while trying to solve the case, and then they got everybody together and had the results, and they said at the end of the investigation that the case had been suspended because they couldn't determine from the evidence if it was a homicide, suicide, or an accident. So basically, they did not say anything new. They did say, however, that there was no proof that the sheriff was involved and he was actually cleared. And then the AG office said they had talked to Klein's witness even before Klein had. And the witness had told them a totally different story than what they told Klein. So they said he was not reliable and could not be considered as a witness. The Attorney General's office also seemed to think the theory about Penny, Tom's mom, having the phone during that time before it was placed in the field was very plausible. But they didn't have enough evidence to take anything to court and didn't even know, how she was involved in it. As for now, Tom's death is still a mystery with conspiracy theories running rampant. I hope Tom gets justice sometime in the near future, and I hope it eventually makes it to court. And there was one thing I forgot to mention in this. A week after Tom's body was found, a high school teacher ended up killing himself, which his wife said it was because he's bipolar and he'd struggled with depression forever. But there was a theory that he was having sex with Tom, the high school teacher was, and that is why he ended up killing himself, because he felt like it was going to come out. And also, this high school teacher, his son was Michael. And Michael, his debit card was found in Tom's vehicle, if you remember that. But the family, of course, they're going to say no involvement. Everybody in the town says they had no involvement, and it still remains a mystery. If I hear anything else about the case, I will keep you updated. It's quite a mystery. If you have any theories, just stick them down in the comments. I'm just interested in what you guys kind of think with us realizing that this is theories and that we're not being mean to anybody. We're just kind of guessing what we think with all the clues. I'll leave you guys with some safety tips like I always do. I want to keep you safe out there. Keep you from things like this happening. You mysteriously disappear. I want to see your face on here, so don't disappear. Don't do a Tom. And meet me back for Wacky World Wednesday, of course on Wednesday. And I will see you then. Hit like, subscribe. I would love that. Bye.